We are live. Hello and welcome to Proptech Buzz, a global ecosystem of Proptech world, which includes products, leaders, discussions, community, and so on and so forth. But why to tell when I can show? So let me give 2 minutes to give you an introduction of what Proptech Buzz is before I introduce my esteemed guest today. So here is PropTech Buzz, the homepage, which tells you discover global PropTech leaders, global PropTech conversations, global PropTech products. So till today, PropTech Buzz as a platform has launched over 844 products, as you can see. And in the next 2 months, this is going to explode to more than 5,000 PropTech products globally. This is also an ecosystem which has more than 2,600 members, as you can see here, and many of these members are live now. As you can see here, we have a few people live. Here is Maifal, founder of List Easy. Here is Garima, founder of Enlight. And here is Craig, who is founder of Property. And these people, at any given point of time, you will find these people who are online. However, out of these 2,600 members, we have VIPs on our platform, around 230 of them. As you can see, these are the who's who of the world. We have Richard, who is the founder of condo.com, the largest condominium marketplace. We have Giri, who is the most accomplished, if I may say, because he's the founder of 2 times NASDAQ listed companies, Realpha, Kevin from CoreLogic, and so on and so forth. Vivek, all the way from India, he's the co-founder of Square Yards, again, a very eminent prop tech company from India. As you can see, we have a host of VIPs from all over the world, and it's growing by the day. We also are a news portal, so where we talk and write about exciting prop tech innovations from all across the globe. So we have an editorial team, we have 2 writers and researchers whose only job is to pick exciting prop tech stories and innovations and write about them. So that is about our media. And now let's talk about our discussion forums. Our discussion forums have become very, very popular in the last few weeks, because we only launched this 2 months ago. However, the adoption has been quite humbling. As you can see, more than 430 posts being made by all these members. And we also, so while this is a global prop tech discussion forum, we also have a private forum for the VIPs to engage amongst themselves. So these VIPs, who are the CEOs and founders and investors, they get to engage in a private setup. That means the non VIPs do not get access, and they have conversations on very high level conversations on and helping each other out, like people who would ask questions like, hey, could you help me how to educate my target audience, because my target audience has been using legacy systems, but how can I educate them on the new technology solutions? And then the community jumps in and starts answering them. So all that is there. And then the VIPs also sometimes ask help for hiring alerts. So here is Kevin, who is the executive general manager at CoreLogic, asking for looking for a senior director in real estate. So this is the community. So if you are a PropTech founder or a CEO, and if you are not on this community, you should join this. This is purely complimentary. We don't charge for this private community. And if you have a PropTech product, and if you have not launched with us, you should launch it. It's again complimentary. The launches are free. Obviously, we do some premium launches where we give you more eyeballs, but a simple launch on our platform is free. As you can see here, here is a product that got launched just last week, Ask the Agent. And we are giving them, as you can see, around 1,773 views already. And then we mention them in our growing newsletter. Our reach has more than 120,000 global audience is the reach. So we help you with that. So that was the promotion of what PropTech Buzz is. But today we are not here to talk about PropTech Buzz, but we are here to invite our guest today, Mr. Dheeraj. All right, here is Dheeraj. Before I invite him onto the podcast, let me give a brief intro of Dheeraj. Dheeraj is the fund manager at Earth Fund, and he has massive experience. His experience spans across early stage private equity and corporate strategy. Previously, he oversaw The Manipal Group startup portfolio played a key role in a SPAC listing on Nasdaq and a cross-border PE transaction in Africa. He was also part of Sundaram Group's 150 million real estate alternate funds, which backed real estate developers in key Indian markets. He started his career at Deloitte in financial advisory a decade ago and is a chartered accountant from Bangalore, India. So, with that, let's welcome Dheeraj. Dheeraj, welcome to Proptech Buzz. How are you doing today?
Hi Ravi, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me a part of this conversation. It's always great to speak to evangelists like you in this space and have more meaningful conversations. So thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for being on the show, Dheeraj, because I know I've been hearing so many splendid things about the Earth Fund, and we'll be going deeper into that. And I know you have been putting in a lot of research, a lot of content behind the scene, because you will be leading, you will be one of the leading funds in India, which is becoming the one of the most exciting places in the globe where a lot of money and capital is being pumped into the prop tech industry. So the next 10 years are going to be fascinating, and you are going to be one of the prominent players into this ecosystem. So I have a lot of questions there. But before we get into that meatier stuff, why don't we start? I gave a brief intro about yours, but why don't you still tell us a little bit about your personal background and your transition story into working for Earth Fund?
Yeah. Well, I started off my career in the financial advisory space, but soon realized that my heart was more inclined towards early stage investments and the entire investment world. So I did a transition. I joined Sundaram Group's real estate fund. So essentially, we back developers across South Indian markets with a private credit fund across three vehicles. We primarily back them in the construction finance space as well as for land acquisition. Subsequently, I got an opportunity to work with a family office wherein I was involved deeply with the tech ecosystem. We invested in startups across the spectrum, whether it's fintech, consumer, etc., and also got the opportunity to formulate corporate strategy across the group's various verticals. So it was a very well diversified group. So primarily, I bring in the real estate experience, the due diligence experience, as well as the early stage, investing along with some strategy experience across the table. This has broadly been my journey before I joined the Earth Fund.
Got it. Thank you. And your passion for technology and real estate is well known. So let's understand where does that stem from. Okay. So maybe you can answer me why technology and real estate. And I guess you have some presentation also that you have put in together. So we could also make help of that as well. So why technology and real estate, Dheeraj?
Yeah. Well, I would love to delve into this conversation by making a very critical statement and getting down to brass tacks. Real estate is the world's largest asset class. It has over $300 trillion in asset value, yet it has significantly lacked tech adoption. Also, from the developer's perspective, we've seen less than a percentage of their top line is primarily invested into tech. And this includes your legacy systems, your SAPs, your tallies, etc. So this is a very critical statement. It explains how, despite having such mammoth value, real estate has significantly lacked tech adoption. The second statement, this is where it's not just about technology; it's also from the sustainability perspective. Is the world's largest contributor to global greenhouse gases and contributes to over a third of global greenhouse gas emissions. Yet, very little has been done to address this. While a lot of markets, such as the North American and the European markets, have been propelling sustainability in real estate by bringing in norms around retrofitting existing buildings, having mandatory guidelines around making buildings net zero up by 2030, by 2050, and so on. Very little has been done, and I think there's a lot more progress to be done. So these are the two most critical statements I would like to put forth before we delve into the conversation, and also would like to pull up some slides which would help me better present my case.
Sure.
Yes, as I mentioned, real estate has lagged tech adoption, and as you can see the Venn diagram, real estate, tech, and sustainability are a perfect combination just because all three simultaneously need to be addressed. And one more very important point is that the construction space, according to a McKinsey report, has achieved just 1% productivity growth over the last 2 decades. Well, this compares with over 3% for the world economy, and also about 4% for the the entire manufacturing space. This just explains as to how there's a lot more tech disruption which is impending in the space, and which is yet to be covered. And while we touched upon the sustainability aspect of real estate, I would like to split that into two. One is the embodied carbon piece, and also the second would be the operational carbon. Well, embodied carbon is nothing but the materials which go into construction, your cement, steel, bricks, etc. And the second, operational carbon, as the name suggests, it's the carbon emissions while the building is operated. Now, about 40% emissions which are generated in aggregate, about 27 come in from the operational carbon, and about the rest come from the embodied carbon. Now, why is this important? Well, a larger focus has been towards addressing the 27% emission, where which basically by bringing in efficiencies in your energy, your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, and the likes, very little, I would say, has been done on the embodied carbon front, at least from an Indian perspective. Why so? Because again, replacing concrete or cement is, it's very challenging. It's not something which will happen overnight. There's no silver bullet to address the embodied carbon space as well. I think it's a combination of factors such as making the entire production process more eco-friendly, bringing in AI and other advanced tech to sort of address the resources which go in, and the likes. So yeah, so these two aspects are the ones which need to be addressed.
Excellent. And maybe you could also share about how has the PropTech space evolved over the years?
Yes, that's a very interesting one. While the whole premise around PropTech began with just discovery platforms, the listing platforms. Well, if most people would understand PropTech house, I need to rent a house. That's how the entire ecosystem just started. And that was there for almost a decade, I would say, from 2000 to 2010. Yes, there were exceptions. As you can see, there's a company called Procore, which is in the construction tech space. It's a giant. It's more than $10 billion in enterprise value, listed on the US stock exchange. Apart from these outliers, I think the bulk of these solutions were focused on digitizing the home buying experience, the home renting experience, and PropTech was just limited to that. Honestly, I didn't see anything significant beyond that. Fast forward a decade from 2010 onwards, we saw a whole wave of the shared economy picking up steam. We saw the likes of co-working, co-living, your likes of Airbnb. We saw the likes of WeWork. We saw and similar platforms in India as well, which really did well. Also, apart from that, we did see something in the material space, which essentially comes under construction tech. Builders, if you notice, the one of the critical constraints, once you decide you want to build a property, what is the constraint? The constraint is the supply chain around materials. So we saw companies which forayed into this space, and classic example of Infra Market, which is the largest prop tech company in India as well, about two and a half plus $1 billion in valuation. So these kind of solutions really address the pain point of builders, and along with the shared economy, we did see this coming to the forefront. This was until 2016. Now, what we are witnessing from 2017 onward is quite interesting, if I had to put it. Why? Because beyond the discovery platforms, beyond the supply chain platform, we saw a host of other solutions which really made a have started making a significant impact in the space. What are those? They are the likes of AR, VR, the marketplaces, robotics to some extent, which have started making inroads. We also saw investment platforms, wherein the of course, real estate compared to quite a few other asset classes is happens to be relatively illiquid. So, the fractional ownership and the investment platforms came in to democratize the asset class, make it accessible to a wider range of consumers, and of course, we saw the COVID, which really propelled the entire the consumer space, the B2C space. If you have to divide the space, one is one part of prop tech or the real estate tech or the construction tech, as you can say, addresses the builders' pain points, and the second one, is the one which addresses the consumer pain points. Now, post COVID, we did see that a lot of AR VR platforms came into the fray. Where you really didn't have to go on site to experience what the house would be like. So, AR VR did a good job there. Then we saw a lot of digital experience around smart home systems, building automation systems, which really took off. Fractional ownership started doing well in the last few years. In fact, recently, the regulatory body SEBI, which really is trying to bring in a lot of regulation in the space and also make it more accessible, make it more open to investors. So we're seeing quite a few action in this space. So if I had to sum it up, PropTech, although it has, maybe it was where fintech was about 8 to 10 years ago. It started off with the discovery platforms, transitioned into the shared economy and the supply chain platform, and now we are seeing a host of solutions which are addressing the entire ecosystem. So, a lot of catching up has happened over the last few years, and yeah, exciting times ahead, I can say.
Excellent. So maybe you could also delve a little bit deeper into the subsegments within the PropTech space. You mentioned about construction tech, investment, and transaction solutions. Do you want to dig a little deeper into these segments?
Sure. So I would like to link the solutions to the entire supply chain, or I would say the entire value chain of a building. Right from your identification of land, you have platforms which help you identify land, and then that's when you sort of come into the design and construction space where construction tech comes in. Now, what exactly are the solutions in construction tech? It is your supply chain, which is your materials, which help you identify and sort of procure materials, your entire robotics and the modular construction and the 3D printing, which also come into some extent. Why robotics? Because, of course, as we know, there are, the industry has a lot of labor challenges as well. So, robotics and the entire precast, modular, and 3D play a very big role in this space. Not just that, we are seeing drone tech. Why drone tech? Because now project monitoring involves a lot of resources, not just for the builders, but also to the lenders, to the asset management companies which lend to developers. This is where drone tech really is making a lot of impact. So construction tech is one, and we touched upon how the construction space has achieved just 1% productivity growth. So construction tech is a very significant aspect of prop tech. So that is one aspect. As we move along, once the construction is done, then you have the entire renovations and improvement space. This is where your interior solutions come in. In India, we saw the likes of Home Lane, Live Space trying to address this. And also, not just that, there are platforms for architect like the likes of Snaptruth, which enable architect to work in a very collaborative manner without having to be dependent on the legacy systems. So yes, renovations and interiors which come after construction space. And as we move along, once the construction has been done, the interiors have been done, then what next? Then you have then it's all about how do you market the property, how do you sell it. This is where the transaction solutions come into the fray. This is your this is I would what I would say, this was the first wave of prop tech. This is where your listing platforms, your in India, if I have to name a few, the 99 acres, no broker, Magic Bricks really made a significant impact in this. Post the transaction, do you have, how do you utilize the asset? This is where your entire shared economy comes into the picture. And of course, once utilization is done, then also you how do you monetize the asset, how do you make it accessible to the consumers? So this is where your investments and also finance finance comes into the play. Why finance? You have your underwriting solutions which merge with which basically I would say a combination of prop tech along with fintech. We have seen companies like Basic trying to solve this problem. We have seen better underwriting solutions which enable you to identify the right borrower profile and so on and so forth. Investments, I did mention very briefly, it's taking off in a very big way in India, at least in the last 3 4 months. There's been a lot of action in this space because regulator has come up with something called as MSME REIT. This was in discussion for a while, but it wasn't formalized until recently, wherein even a single property which is worth 50 crore and above in value can be listed as a REIT. Earlier, this was not possible. Earlier, you could only have a collection of properties with about, say, 500 crore or more in value, which is about 80, $90 million, or 80, 70 to $80 million to be precise. But now it's become easier for smaller properties to be listed. The entire space to be democratized in a far meaningful way. So these are the broad categories which exist in the prop tech space.
Got it. And so we are discussing about the Indian ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned, like, I mean, the challenges for this industry has been globally the same challenges. Okay, lack of technology innovation, less than 1% of the top line getting into this. How has but I would like to know, particularly on the Indian real estate sector, how has the Indian real estate sector joined this global wave of innovation? Because the innovations have been happening, with just that it's not a level playing field. There has been a massive innovation in the US in the last 10 years, but India has been slow to catch up. Most of the developers that talk to, they're only interested in into transactions. They're all they are interested in how to sell more of their inventory. But technology innovation, it has not taken off. How do you see this entire Indian real estate joining this wave of innovation?
I would like to correlate this with the funding, VC funding in this space. In the last decade, the global funding has been about 120 to $130 billion plus in prop tech. In India, it is just a fraction of about 5% of that, about $6 to $7 billion is what we have seen so far come into Indian prop tech space. And if you have to further break it down, there are about 2,000 odd or 2,000 plus startups in the prop tech space, of which say about 10 to 15% probably would have received funding or participation from the VC and the angel space. Now, in terms of adoption, yes, we have seen that the global counterparts are ahead in terms of how the spaces have evolved. If I would just give an example, for instance, the construction tech space, the entire robotics, modular printing, and 3D modular construction and 3D printing space have have matured quite a bit in the global markets. But in India, we yet to see those technologies sort of make a significant impact and have a meaningful impact. Yes, having said that, there are other solutions like the transaction, the supply chain, and the investments which have been progressing really well in India. But there are certain pockets which are yet to catch up with the global ecosystem. So that's where India is. But no doubt, things are changing. Real estate is slated to become $1 trillion economy in from the Indian perspective, from current about 300 350 billion dollars, which is significant. And this is slated to happen by 2030, which is about 6 years from now. So yes, we are seeing exciting. We see a lot of potential for PropTech to make impact, and yes, exciting times ahead.
Excellent. And how have the, I mean, one of the biggest elephant in the room, right? Because I speak to so many Proptech founders almost every day. And Dheeraj, you and I had a conversation just yesterday and this morning as well, that while there are these very passionate um, founders who are innovating stuff, the big challenge has been how do they cross the chasm and go and able to offer these products, provide these demos to their products to the developers. So my question to you is, how has the developer ecosystem embraced tech in India, and what has been Brigade's journey in this space?
Yeah, I would like to split this into two parts. First is the how has the ecosystem played out and how developers have embraced this. Simply put, this needs to be a win-win for both, just for the developers as well, for startups as well. Now, for develop from the developers' perspective, uh, what is important? Either I need a solution to increase my top line or reduce my costs. So until and unless you, or of course bring in efficiencies as well, which again has an impact on your metrics. But unless there are solutions which address this, the adoption, I mean, or the acceptance can take its own course. But having said that, we are seeing solutions, at least in the construction tech space. Just to cite an example, if there are solutions which help you detect deviations, for example, from your original plan, which help you construct better, which help you minimize your inaccuracies during the construction process, which can use deep tech to detect leakages, to even do a simple thing as your reconciliation with the contractors, what quantity of materials have gone in. These kind of solutions have a solid use case and developers are more likely to embrace this. So to answer this question, yes, the adoption has been slow, but having said that, the ecosystem has been changing. Developers are more um, conducive towards embracing technologies, I would say, if there's a solid value proposition which can be brought to the table. So it has to be approached that way. In respect of Brigade's journey, yes, Brigade, if I have to just give a background, been in the business for about 4 decades, and about 7 years ago, under the leadership of Nirupa Shankar, who's a joint managing director, Brigade set up Asia's first Proptech accelerator program called Brigade Reap, has accelerated about 70 odd companies so far. So journey has been incredible. We've seen a couple of exits in the ecosystem. We've also seen follow-on participation by renowned VCs and investors. So this has been an incredible experience, at least from the REIT perspective. And yeah, the group has further, is doubling down on its efforts and on its way to sort of set up a more formalized vehicle under the leadership of Nirupa Shankar.
Okay. Anything concrete in the coming months or coming quarters on how more developers can be roped in into this adoption of tech? Maybe some concrete steps that would make a lot of our listeners who are founders in the Indian property ecosystem a little more hopeful.
Yes, definitely. I did touch upon a solution which uses advanced tech to come in during the construction phase. We've been talking to certain founders. We have seen, adoption by not just the tier one builders, also the tier two, tier three, the smaller builders as well, who are embracing this kind of technology. So we are seeing those green shoots in the ecosystem. And as I mentioned, anything which induces more efficiencies into the system and makes job easier for the builders is more likely to have adoption in the coming quarters. Yeah.
Excellent.
And one more thing, I think more than that, the awareness needs to increase, and also the it's more of a collaborative efforts by the ecosystem rather than in silos. So as we see, and you must have heard, there are quite a few funds which are being set up in this space. There's a lot more participation in this space. There's a lot more active interest by investors in this space. So things are certain to change in the coming quarters.
So, as a fund manager, so when you invest into some of these prop tech companies, it is well within your interest to ensure that there is adoption amongst the developer community, right?
Yeah.
You'd go out of your way and help them make connections and help to see that it is getting adopted. Um, how does that how does that work out? Like, do you actually make these connections not just within Brigade ecosystem but outside the developer community? Is that how your fund works?
Yes, definitely. The idea is not to have the setup within the group. The idea is to open up the technologies, the wave of innovation towards the larger community so that the entire industry benefits as a whole. And until and unless the technology is democratized, it is not it may not make a significant impact, or it may not move the needle in terms of the larger adoption in the ecosystem. So yes, a broader participation is required, and we always strive to ensure to do that.
Got it. So, all the listeners who would be, say, willing to approach Earth Fund, what do you think you should be? What should be their qualifying criteria before they reach out to you? Like, do you are you looking for certain kind of innovations, certain kind of sectors or subsectors? Is this construction heavy, or is this across the broad spectrum, and so on and so forth? Could you give us a sense of what is the qualifying criteria for Earth Fund?
So anything which cuts across real estate, technology, and sustainability would be a focus area, and also, as I mentioned, the different pockets within real estate tech space, be it asset utilization, be it your investment space, be it anything in your construction tech space, would be an area of interest. And of course, if it cuts across all three, which basically includes your buildings, for example, energy efficiency in buildings, either by the way of IoT devices, for example, to monitor. First thing is you monitor your energy usage across the building, and second is you bring in efficiencies. You take steps to reduce the carbon emissions. You also to minimize the usage, or rather optimize the usage within your building premises. Yes, that would be of interest for any prop tech focused investor.
Excellent. That was quite valuable. Let's also end this conversation with understanding what are the technology that we are seeing being deployed today, and which ones are yet to make an impact in the Indian tech ecosystem, prop tech ecosystem.
Sure. I would like to just pull up my screen. I would like to quickly scan through this. While we had seen that this entire 5 to 7 billion which has come into the prop tech space has been focused around a few subsegments within the space. It has largely been skewed towards your procurement solutions and towards the transaction solutions, but there's a larger section of technologies which are waiting to be disrupted, which are waiting to achieve mass adoption as well as standardization. So if I have to touch upon one, we spoke about extensively about the investment space, how the regulatory landscape has been in favoring this space. Second, very interesting one is smart contracting. Now, what do I mean by smart contracting? Basically, use of blockchain to improve your process flow. Now, and also the entire workflow management. Now, how does this help a builder? Let's take a very basic example of, say you want to buy a house or you want to rent a house. There is a documentation, there's a series of documentation which is involved. Then you have your milestone payments, which are linked to the construction plan. And also when you talk about rentals, there is a month on month monitoring which needs to be done. The contract needs to be renewed, needs to be signed. So smart contracting can really make a big impact in that segment, and also improve the efficiencies in the entire process. AR/VR is for sales, and also we seeing this being deployed in the interior space as well. Wherein you can visualize how your interiors are going to look like, how the lightings within your interiors are going to look like. The entire AR, VR, and the metaverse space is it's quite interesting here. Robotics. Now, I would like to approach robotics in a very different way. In fact, when you look at Indian market, now, why robotics has, at least in the construction space, has not taken off? Why have we not seen any unicorns yet? Or forget unicorns, we have not seen large scale deployment of robotics in this space yet, despite the need to optimize the labor, despite the labor challenges that we see in the ecosystem. It's simple because there's no cost arbitrage. Now you compare the North American, the European market, the labor cost there versus labor cost here. Very simply put, labor in India is quite, I would say, more affordable. So there's no incentive to have a large scale adoption of robotics. But having said that, yes, we do have labor challenges in the country. We a lot of time the construction gets disrupted or even stalled because of these issues. So now, until and unless you figure out a way, for example, say plastering and painting solutions for high rise, there is a solid use case for robotics to play a big role. We have seen very monotonous and mundane jobs like moving materials within the construction premises. We have seen robotics come in that space as well. But why single company has not grown or scaled that significantly yet? In my opinion, it's because perhaps they have not productized the entire solution. Where if someone can come up with, say, a bouquet of offerings in the robotic space and a more cost efficient way, or to come up, to deploy these solutions, I think that can really help. In modular construction and 3D printing, yes, this can address a lot of challenges in the construction tech space, but if I had to give a very simple example, in India, the government of India had used this modular construction uh, in the form of the light gauge steel framework, or LGSF you call it. They had used it for mass scale affordable housing projects, and we have seen that this was a very good anecdotal reference for a larger deployment of modular construction. But having said that, unless and until the logistics is taken care of, unless and until you do a mass scale deployment, modular may not be that feasible. So that's what modular is. And also 3D printing. Yeah, we have seen the likes of the construction tech, the construction biggies, the L&Ts of the world use 3D printing very selectively. They've started it. We have seen one or two companies which have got funded in this space, but this is yet to, I would say, yet to take off significantly. Now, big data, AI, and ML for commercial real estate. Yes, this is one space which is yet to make an impact. Why? Because commercial real estate industry, a lot of time is spent in organizing the data, understanding the data, making sense of the data. So big data, AI, and ML can play a very big role. IoT for greener buildings is what we touched upon for sustainability, basically, which helps you monitor your energy usage. Now we have seen that a lot of global companies, they have a mandate before they lease out or rent out a building in India, uh, or anywhere in the world. At least what we are seeing, I've heard of anecdotal evidences where they need to have certain standard of buildings, like they need to be certified, green certified buildings. In India we have gold, platinum, like various certifications. So that's mandatory before they lease out and rent out. Now that can really propel the adoption of you know uh, technology, and to ensure that they are more carbon efficient or carbon neutral in the long run. So IoT can play a big role. Why? Because you can have IoT sensors across the building which can help track your energy usage, which can help bring down your AC costs or ventilation costs. Because a lot of times these devices go unchecked, your usage goes unchecked. There's a lot of room to bring in efficiencies as well. And one more point I would like to add on from the Indian ecosystem is that Sustainability and ROI consideration typically go hand in hand. So while we talk about sustainability, there is also, a perspective of ROI, and which is naturally true because once you identify where your leakages are, once you identify where you're using excess energy, and when you optimize those, this can lead to a lot of cost savings as well, along with ensuring that we are more responsible and sustainable. So these are the technologies which are yet to make an impact. Some of them, at least.
Got it. Just curious, when is the Earth Fund going to go live? Is this in the coming months, coming quarters? When is Earth Fund available?
Yes, so Earth Fund received the license a few months ago, and in the process of completing the paperwork and doing all the formalities. So sometime in the near future.
Nice, nice. Well, this brings us to the end of a very, I must say, illuminating conversation because Dheeraj has been in the weeds, in the ground, while building this fund. He has, I mean, collated a massive amount of research in the Indian Proptech ecosystem, which was quite evident in this conversation. So, Dheeraj, thank you for spending time with us and letting us know about the entire landscape, breaking it down, and also giving us a hopeful outlook for the innovators, for the founders who are coming up with excellent tech solutions. So I cannot thank you enough for your time and sharing with us your wealth of wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much, Ravi. I think it was a insightful conversation, and also really love what PropTech Buzz has been doing in this space. I think we need more champions to come forth and create awareness in this space. So I think pretty commendable job what you've been doing.
Thank you so much, Dheeraj. See you around. Bye bye.
Thank you.